So as an educator and CEO of People in Practice, I get to talk to ortho residents and recent grads all the time about the feasibility of them starting their own practice, particularly, obviously, in light of the high costs and escalating educational debt. So it's a totally different experience than buying or transitioning to an established practice. So today, we're fortunate enough to hear the story of somebody that's done that and has done that well. So, grasshoppers, pay attention. Our Golden Age of Orthodontics podcast sponsors make it possible for us to bring you new episodes. Dental monitoring is making orthodontic treatment smarter. DM Insights provides clear analytics on clinical operations and practice workflow. You can measure and enhance the effectiveness of your protocols, all while creating a new standard in patient experience and practice efficiency. Lightforce Orthodontics is revolutionizing orthodontic care with cutting-edge custom bracket technology that offers personalized digital treatment plans that are fast, precise, and uniquely tailored to your patient's needs. Take advantage of the new standard of care with 3D printed, fully customized brackets combined with indirect bonding and digital planning. You can learn a lot more and take advantage of some special offers by visiting our partner page at pplpractice.com.
The future of orthodontics is evolving and changing every day. But although the way to achieve practice growth has changed, there's never been a better time to be an orthodontist. Let's get into the minds of industry leaders, forward-thinking orthodontists, and technology insiders to learn how they see the future of the orthodontic specialty. How will digital orthodontics, artificial intelligence, clear aligner therapy, remote monitoring, in-house printing, and other innovations change the way you practice? Join your hosts Dr. Leon Klempner and Amy Epstein each month as they bring you insights, tips, and guest interviews focused on helping you capitalize on the opportunities for practice growth. And now, welcome to the Golden Age of Orthodontics with the co-founders of People in Practice, Dr. Leon Klempner and Amy Epstein.
Welcome to the Golden Age of Orthodontics. I'm Leon Klempner, retired, board-certified orthodontist, proud, director of and craniofacial orthodontist at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, part-time faculty at the Harvard School of Dental Medicine, and of course, the CEO of People and Practice.
So my dad retired in 2014, and this is what he's doing right now. He's busier than the rest of us who have not retired from clinical practice. I'm Amy Epstein. I'm the COO of People in Practice, and we are in partnership with my dad. We have a digital marketing consultancy for orthodontists by orthodontists, and we help practices use the right tools in the right ways to maximize growth. Today, and that growth is growth of established practices, practices that are looking to bring on partners, doctors that are looking to retire, but also practices that are just getting off the ground.
And so, if I could just jump in and just say that as an orthodontist, I've been blessed to be able to do exactly what I want to do at this stage of my life. So I might credit this to everybody that I all the shoulders that I stand on, my instructors, the ortho profession. We're the greatest profession in the world, and this has allowed me to do whatever I want to do. So hopefully you'll be in my position someday.
Mm-hmm. Well, so on that note, we have Dr. Maggie Law joining us today. We're thrilled to have her here because she started up her own practice ground up in Homewood, Alabama in March of 2020. You heard that right. After working as an associate for almost 4 years. And in your words, Maggie, your practice is based on your love of Southern hospitality, technology, and lifetime learning. Maggie's a big supporter of others just starting out, and she helps to moderate a Facebook group for orthodontic startups. And I also know that Maggie was a podcaster herself, so she's no newbie to the podcast scene. So we're thrilled to have you here today. Welcome to the Golden Age.
Thank you, guys. I'm so excited. I've been a longtime fan of your podcast, and so I'm very excited to be here today. And, get to kind of share my story and just let other younger orthodontists out there know that doing a startup can be the best thing for you and just something truly wonderful. So, yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Great.
Well, Maggie, thanks for being here. We have a lot of listeners that are residents all over the country and a lot of orthos that come out with a lot of debt. And a lot of them feel that, starting your own practice is just not possible anymore. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to hear your story. So speak to the younger demographic and the residents and tell us a little bit about your story and how you did it.
Sure. So I graduated from the University of Georgia in 2008, and then I moved to Birmingham to go to dental school and finished in 2012. And then I stayed in Birmingham at UAB to do my orthodontic residency and finished in April of 2015. And I was actually the only one of my co-residents that did not go out on their own. My husband is a radiologist, and he is a year older than me, but his residency was longer. He was doing a fellowship in Birmingham. I met him when I was in dental school and ended up getting married when I was, I think it was at the end of my first year residency. I can't remember. And so I knew I needed a job in Birmingham. So I was the only one of my co-residents that was going to associate. One of my co-residents went into practice with his dad. One bought one of our faculty's practices, and another one took over an existing practice in Port Charlotte, Florida. So I just needed to find a job. So I, did what a lot of people do. I did a cover letter, sent it out to all the practices in Birmingham, and just tried to see if anybody was looking for an associate or would hire me. Birmingham is where the dental school is. And so I know I live in Alabama. And so when I say saturated, it's not saturated like New York City, but Birmingham is like the saturated place to practice. David Sarver, I consider him a mentor. I did my master's research with him. He practices 3 miles down the street from me. So it's a packed area. And so I sent out letters, and I found a private practice opportunity working for 2 female orthodontists. And so I worked for one of them 2 days a week, the other one 2 days a week. And then they had like a shared practice that I would maybe go to by myself about once a month. And so that was what I did for 3.5 years. And along the way, my husband finished fellowship, got a job here in Birmingham. And when I joined that group, they were like, there's 3 offices, 3 of us, there'll be a chance to hopefully buy in and become part of the practice. And it didn't work out. And that's actually like a very, very common story. And so I had an associateship that didn't work out, and I was kind of left wondering, like, what do I do? Like, I'm not really sure what my next steps are. So talked to my family, talked to my husband. I was 6 months pregnant with my first child at the time, and I finally was like, I've just got to walk away. I've got to do what's going to be best for my family. So I call it my sabbatical year. So I had a sabbatical year of, I took a year off of work. I had my baby, and I immediately started looking for a place to open up a startup practice. So I looked for about 9 months. My son started daycare, and my husband looked at me and was like, "Are you ever going back to work?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm just trying to find a location." Because for me as a working mom, I wanted to be very close to my house. Like, if I'm going to work, I wanted convenience. I wanted to be to where I could leave and go to a show or a little place. So my now office is about 2.5 miles from my home. So it took a while to find, because again, it's a saturated area. And so my son started daycare, and I just started hardcore planning. I combed every single Facebook group, Google, would search the term startup, tried to gather as much information as I could. And that's kind of how I got the ball rolling. I get a lot of people that reach out to me and say, well, what's the first step? The first step is always finding a location. And then after that, once you found your location, like, the floodgates open for all the fun parts of it.
So it sounds like it's like a family situation was happening, and you were growing your family, and the maybe post COVID too, there's some of this too, but the desire to have flexibility and the desire to be able to accommodate your home life maybe more in a more significant way than any of us allowed ourselves to do in the past. Do you think, it is leading to my question about why do you think there are so many startups happening now? Do you think that's part of it, or do you feel like there are other reasons?
I have my thoughts on this. I think one of the main reasons is I think most of us as orthodontists, we're hard workers, we're high achievers, we're goal oriented, and ultimately working for somebody else long term is not what makes us happy, because I think we all like to be tinkerers and challenge ourselves and come up with new ways to do things. And when you're an associate, you can't just go buy a new bracket, or you can't just say, well, I want to start using 3D printed appliances, because the head doctor, they have their practice the way that they want it. And, they might not want to spend that extra money on new technology on something that's already working for them. And I always say that being an associate is great until one day it's not. And then when you get to that day where you're like, wow, I could be working hard for myself, or I can be working hard for somebody else. It's kind of like this flip. And I think most people don't choose to do startups. I think doing a startup is the harder path. But because of the changing landscape in orthodontics with OSOs and DSOs, a lot of the practices that used to get sold to, graduating residents and, associates, you can get a lot more money historically. And I know things are shifting a little bit now by selling to an OSO than you can by selling to a younger doctor like myself. And one of the doctors that I ended up working for did just sell to one of, the biggest OSO. And so I think that ultimately a lot of doctors, older doctors, they're going that route. And so it's not leaving opportunities for people like me and my colleagues. And so I think that there's been so many startup practices in the last 3 years. And I think that a lot of it is based out of sheer necessity, because people cannot find opportunities like how they could 10 years ago. Also, Amy, I think owning my own practice has given me more flexibility, more joy, more happiness. I see patients 3 days a week. So I have 2 days, I call them my admin days, where, I'm at home and I still send my kids to school, like daycare those days, and I go pick them up early. But, I do a little bit of admin work. I have time for myself. Like I feel like I have a really great work-life balance because I'm in control of my schedule, which I did not have as an associate.
Yep. I feel that deeply. So let me ask you, you touched for a second on the ability and the flexibility to have control over exploring a new orthodontic technology. Do you feel like as a startup, the feasibility of using those technologies is there because, you're also battling overhead costs. And so how do you make that work, bringing in that technology and trying it out, but still controlling expenses?
That's a good question. I think you have to be smart. I do my own bookkeeping. Obviously I have an accountant and I send everything to my accountant, but I watch my numbers carefully because I want to be a good steward of my business, but also not make any dumb decisions. Like, you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, but obviously talking to your peers and trying to limit those. And I think that initially, like when I opened this practice in 2020, I had never worked at an office that had a 3D printer. And I just decided from day one, we were going to 3D print. Like, I was not going to spend money on alginate. I was not going to spend money on a model trimmer, So I was like, I'm going to put that money that I would have bought with this old school stuff. I'm just going to put it right toward the 3D printer. For me, a lot of what I do as an orthodontist, which I'm sure you feel the same way, Dr. Klempner, is not what I learned in residency. The only type of expanders I do now are ones with 3D printed bands. I started using those almost exclusively a year into my startup, and those have changed my life. There's no separator appointments. They literally snap into place. We just delivered one right before we recorded this podcast. It's like 90 seconds to glue it in. There's no bite sticks. My practice is 50% Invisalign. I did 2 Invisalign cases in residency. And I think you kind of have to go with what your demographic wants. So my lab bills and my P&L is way higher than somebody that does braces. But also, I believe what Jonathan Nicozisis says is true. Like, there's a plastic employee and I don't have to have as many clinical hands. Like, we have seen so many braces patients this week, and I shared with y'all before we recorded, I'm having a baby next week because I'm trying to get all these braces patients in to be seen before I take my 3-week maternity leave. And with aligners, you can just spread that out. Like, it's so much easier. So, I think a lot of it has to do with your demographic, and in the area where my practice is 50% adults as well. That's what they want. And I make it work by seeing them less frequently and doing great setups and getting predictable results.
Yeah. So, that's a big question that a lot of younger orthodontists come to me with, which is, can I get financing? Can I do it on my own? Is it possible to do it on my own? So did you find that when you decided to open up your own practice, if you needed to get a business loan, or, the banks were open to it?
So my situation, I'll be very transparent, was a little unique because my husband has a good job. He's a radiologist. And because he had a good job, most people, they associate 2 days a week when they're at their startup, and then they're like at their practice 2 days a week to kind of earn extra income. And so I was not in that position where I had to have an associate job. And so to get a loan, I believe it was Wells Fargo would not even offer me a loan since I did not have proof of income since I wasn't working. And so I ended up working with a local bank, which I always tell people to reach out to local banks when they're trying to get loans, because it's really nice to be able to get in touch with your banker if you need anything. I have never worked with Provide, but Provide seems to be one that's been coming up on the orthodontic startup group that has been very kind and generous to startup orthodontists. And so for me, what ended up happening was my husband had to personally guarantee my business loan for 3 years. And then his personal guarantee burned off since I wasn't working. But I have never heard of anybody. And like what I said, I talked to a lot of people that do startups that have said, I cannot get financing. So I think people think that could be an obstacle, but it's really not, because the success rates of orthodontic practices are very high. So, I think that what most people probably have to do is do 2 days a week as an associate, or have a working spouse, like how I have a working spouse. And then it's just like anything else. You just kind of work as a team and things balance out.
So, Maggie, on our podcast, we typically ask callers to call in with a question. And I do have a caller with a question for you. But right before we do that, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this podcast, of the Golden Age. We're sponsored by Dental Monitoring and Lightforce. It's a nice segue from that technology discussion we were just having, because whether you're starting out or you're looking to continue growth, having the cutting edge orthodontic technology can provide differentiation from everybody else in a saturated market like you're in. And it also can provide just a really streamlined patient experience, in addition to the quality of care and flexibility on the doctor side, like you're saying, spacing them out a little bit more. There's a lot of technology out there, and these two, Dental Monitoring and Lightforce, do a lot for both the patient and also for the doctor. Fewer appointments and, more comfort, shorter treatment times. These are all the benefits that these two technologies provide. So to learn more about dental monitoring, to learn more about Lightforce, you can visit our partner page on pplpractice.com. So let's take our caller question, which is, we'll play it now.
Hey, Dr. Maggie, it's Kirsten Frazier at Frazier Orthodontics in Simpsonville, South Carolina. I wanted to ask, I know that you started your practice from scratch. What are the best parts of owning your own practice?
The best part about owning my practice is, number one, the flexibility of it. But number two, it is so rewarding to start something out of nothing. And it's also really rewarding to have a team. I have four full-time employees, and just knowing that them getting to come to work and give an opportunity to provide for their families, but also that we have a really great, fun work environment and culture. I'm so grateful for, because we spend so much time at work that my girls, they sometimes, like, they told me around Christmas time, one of them looked at me and said, my husband said it's not fair that I get to go to work with my 3 best friends every day. And I just was like, it almost made me tear up, because that's what I want. I want a team that works together and just enjoys each other's company. So that's really rewarding, to have a great team. It's really rewarding to have flexibility, and all the relationships that you make with patients. And you know, I'm 37, and I'm kind of at that age where a lot of the moms that are bringing kids in, they're close in my age, or I'm treating, my peers, and it's really fun. I feel like I get to talk a lot all day, and I get to make really good relationships and meet really cool people that I might not meet. My husband always jokes with me when we go out and about. He's like, you're a celebrity. I'm like, I'm not a celebrity. I just know people through work, because we can't go anywhere without running into people that we know, which I know that terrifies some people. Like, they don't want to work where they practice. But for me, I like it. It definitely puts a little bit, treating friends and family is definitely, which I know, Dr. Klumner, it's harder than treating people that you don't know. And sometimes I joke with my friends and family. I'm like, listen, something weird might happen, because weird things always happen to friends and family. But, I'd much rather, take care of them than let somebody else do it. And that was another huge reason why I stepped up and did this practice. Was I was like, if I don't do this, if it's not going to be me, it's going to be somebody else. And why not me? And I think that once you kind of get over that initial fear and you dive on in, you start to realize, like, wow, this is great. And I can definitely make this happen.
So it's really, really funny, because, I practiced for 38 years in the community that I lived in. So, I knew a lot of people, and a lot of people knew me. And it would always be amazing. Like, I'd go to the movies, and, one of the kids would like look at me like, oh my God, he goes to the movies.
He's a normal person.
Seeing you guys in the wild.
Here?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you
exactly.
doing?
I was there to observe these, because I was at every one of those movie showings and dinners where they would be like, oh, Dr. Klumner, I can't believe you're here. It's like a celebrity.
Well, I'm going to share a little piece of advice for you. It may benefit you or not. It benefited me a lot, which is, I would get feedback from my wife who would say, who is that? And I didn't always know who they were. I knew they were a patient in the practice, but she'd kind of get insulted that I didn't introduce her. So what I learned to do is I would introduce her first. So if I met somebody, let's say at a restaurant or at the movies, I would say, this is my wife, Lori. And then they would introduce themselves, and we'd get their name. So
Yeah.
little
Well,
tidbit
That's
that you-
really good advice, because sometimes my husband's like, I was just standing there, so I'm going to start doing that. This is my husband. That's really good advice.
Yep. And listening to you talk, I'd like to rewind the clock. I'd come right into your practice and practice with you, and I'm ready to go. The only thing I wouldn't like is I wouldn't want David Sauver down the block from me.
He is the nicest guy. When I first opened, I had this case where I just didn't even know what to do. And I emailed him. I'm like, can you look at this for me? And you know what he did? He set up a Zoom call. He looked at it with me, talked me through it. He is just, he is very kind. So
Yeah. That's the problem. He's so good, and he's so nice.
I know.
And he's down the block, but
I know.
But anyway, for people that are listening in, starting your own practice is not all that easy. So, we've heard about a lot of the benefits. So I wondered if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the challenges that you faced and how you dealt with them.
I think the biggest thing that I think you have to have the right personality to own your own practice. And I do believe that it's not for everybody. I think you have to be really organized. I think you have to be goal oriented. I think you have to constantly have a need to want to be improving your systems. I would say for me, one of the challenges, which I didn't know it was a challenge at the time because I didn't really have any options, was I did open March 2nd, 2020. So we opened and I got like my CO on like March 2nd. So like that first week, I had my 2 little team members. I had an assistant and a treatment coordinator, and we were just doing like training and that sort of stuff. And because of my previous work situation, I didn't have a non-compete or anything like that. I just didn't do like marketing before I opened just because I just didn't. And in hindsight, I probably should have, but ultimately it wouldn't have mattered because of COVID anyway. But I do think that it was harder for me to get into practices and introduce myself once we reopened in May, because I don't know if y'all remember in May of 2020, it was like people had to wait in their cars, waiting rooms were closed. And so there wasn't an opportunity to go in and introduce myself. And what was also hard too was I didn't have any finished cases that I could share with people. I had like I am ABO board certified, just like you. I had my 6 board cases from residency, but as an associate, when I kind of ended that relationship, it's not like, and all the cases were co-treated. So it's not like I could have gotten a bunch of records to post on my Instagram. And so I think that initial kind of reaching out to dentists took a little bit longer. And so what I did was I just started posting everything on my Instagram. I really look up to Dovey Prero. He's so great. He's got a great Instagram following. And I just started posting my construction. I started jumping on stories and putting my face on there. And it felt weird at first, but I think that helped me overcome the challenges of not being able to do traditional marketing. I didn't even do my first community event until October of 2021. I mean, that was when like the first like elementary school fall festival happened because of the pandemic. So I think that traditional marketing efforts were definitely stunted because of that. But I was able to pivot and use my social media and Instagram to really put stuff out there. And once I opened, I just started posting everything. I post progress photos of Invisalign, like any little thing. And now like I have a little format and I try to post like a finished case every week because now, I'm finishing multiple cases a week. It's crazy. So I would say initial marketing was a challenge. Hiring staff is always a challenge. I had to fire my first employee this year. That was not fun. But what I do is I remind myself that it's not just orthodontists that have a hard time with hiring. It's every single industry. And then it makes me just realize there's no reason to feel bad for myself. Like this is any business owner, and with great risks come great rewards. And, if you look long enough and you create a good team, you'll get the right people in your office.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that's helpful. We heard a little advice from Leon earlier. If you get stuck in a restaurant, but is there any advice that you have that you'd like to offer those that are thinking about starting up or starting in the process of opening a startup practice?
I would tell them that once you get past the fearful stage, you just need to go for it, and that I consider my business, it's like another one of my children, because you're always thinking about it. You're thinking out, like I'm out at Walmart or Target on the weekends and I see something like, oh, that would be cool for a delivery, or, oh, I'd like to get that for my team as like a little surprise. And so you have to just know that it's always going to be there and it's always going to need attention. But just like how having children is the most rewarding thing I've ever done, having this business is so rewarding. And the friendships and the relationships and the hugs and the completed smiles that you look at and you see them on the street, or you see them on Instagram, you see an Instagram picture like, golly, like I moved the teeth in that spot. Like that looks so good. It's very rewarding to me. So I would tell them that they just need to go for it. And even though it seems scary at first, it'll be one of the best decisions they ever make.
Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. This has been really, really nice. It has been good to see you again, and we hope to have you back on the show again after you have baby number 2. So good luck with that. If, Maggie, anyone wants to reach out to you with questions, what's the best way that they can get in contact?
Let's see. The best way to get in touch with me is my Instagram at Law, L-A-W, Orthodontics. I am very active on Instagram. I run the Instagram. I use Canva. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. Canva I use to create like all my images and graphics. But so reach out to me on at Law Orthodontics. And then another great way to get in touch is to join the Facebook group called Orthodontic Startups, Orthodontists Only. It was started by Robert Laraway. He's Kent Island Orthodontics. He's in Maryland. And he reached out to me after he started it and said, hey, because he had reached out to me and asked me some questions before he opened his startup. And he was like, hey, will you help me moderate this? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I think I never wanted to open a startup. This was never my goal. I always thought I would buy an existing practice. And so I just said, God, if this works out, like I just want to be able to use my story and help as many people and encourage them, because I don't want people to feel alone in the startup process. So join the Facebook group. You do have to answer questions. You cannot have sold to an OSO or a DSO to be in the group. You have to just be like a true like startup practice. But I personally try to respond to every single comment, every single post. And I've posted a ton of my tips, tricks. Here's how I use QR codes on my business cards. Here's how I do X, Y, and Z. This is what works well for me. So the archives in that group are just pure gold for just great tips for a startup.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, thanks again. We appreciate it very much. Good luck, and we will talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You can subscribe or download other episodes of The Golden Age of Orthodontics on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate you telling a colleague. For more information about People in Practice, you can sign up for our free marketing newsletter on our website at pplpractice.com.
Amy and I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to watch or listen to us. You can tell that we like doing this. If you'd like to contact me directly with any marketing questions or any questions at all, just shoot me an email at leon@pplpractice.com. And remember, for forward-thinking orthos, it's never been a better time to be an orthodontist. We are in the golden age. Take advantage of it. Till next time, see ya.
Thank you for tuning in to the Golden Age of Orthodontics. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or visit our website at thegoldenageoforthodontics.com for direct links to both the audio and video versions of this episode.